The Judge, Arishem. At the heart of the Celestials' hierarchy stands Arishem the Judge, arguably the most important of them all. In the MCU, he is introduced in Eternals, where he towers over Earth to confront Cersei. Arishem's purpose is both awe-inspiring and terrifying. He seeds planets with the potential for celestial life, and later decides whether those worlds deserve to continue. In fact, he created the very first sun, bringing light into a universe that, until then, had only known darkness. But Arishem isn't simply a creator. His title, The Judge, reflects his role as the ultimate arbiter of survival. In the comics, Arishem judged Earth multiple times, each instance determining whether humanity had evolved enough to continue existing. Planets deemed unworthy are wiped clean and repurposed, their inhabitants erased in favor of new experiments. The MCU, however, shows us a slightly different take. By the time of Eternals, Arishem makes it clear that Earth's judgment is only just beginning, implying that, unlike the comics, this could be his very first ruling on humanity's fate. That alone raises the stakes enormously. Arishem isn't simply carrying out routine business, he's setting the precedent for how Celestials might treat Earth in this version of Marvel's universe. Arishem also has tools beyond imagination, like the World Forge, where he crafts new iterations of Deviants and Eternals. Yet, even with all his power, he cannot splinter his consciousness the way Ego can. This detail reminds us that while Arishem is ancient and all-powerful, his role is clearly defined. He is the cosmic judge, and one day his verdict will decide Earth's destiny once and for all. The Analyzer, Jemiah. If Arishem is the judge, then Jemiah is the cosmic prosecutor, gathering evidence across the universe to support or condemn entire civilizations. Known as Jemiah the Analyzer, his function is to study the progression of life on different worlds and deliver his findings directly to Arishem. Think of him as the celestial equivalent of a scientist mixed with an auditor. His testimony determines whether Arishem allows a planet to live or orders its destruction. In the Eternals movie, Jemiah appears briefly in Arishem's grand history lesson to Cersei, helping illustrate the Celestials' vast role in the birth of galaxies. But in the comics, his duties are even more specific. Jemiah closely monitored sentient beings, evaluating their ability to adapt, innovate, and evolve. His role wasn't to pass judgment himself, but to ensure Arishem had the clearest possible picture when the final decision came. This process reflects just how methodical the Celestials are. They don't destroy worlds on a whim, they test, analyze, and measure outcomes with a kind of cold, clinical detachment. Fans have speculated that Jemiah could be the Celestial whose severed head became Knowhere, though evidence suggests otherwise. In fact, Jemiah is still depicted alive and active in MCU lore, while Knowhere remains a mystery. Whether or not this connection proves true, Jemiah represents the careful, detail-oriented side of the Celestials. A reminder that even gods rely on data before playing with the fates of entire planets. The Measurer, Hargen. The Measurer is one of the most mysterious Celestials we know of, even in the comics. His appearances are rare and his duties remain vague, but his title offers valuable clues. The Measurer's role seems tied to collecting data, quantifying populations, and tracking a planet's progress on the evolutionary scale. If Jemiah analyzes the quality of life, then Hargen likely ensures the numbers add up. Together, they create a system of cosmic checks and balances. In the MCU, Hargen is shown briefly during Arishem's exposition in Eternals, but little else is revealed. Still, based on his comic history, we can piece together a theory. Hargen might be responsible for measuring a species' growth, population size, technological advancement, even cultural development, and then sending that information to Nezarr the Calculator. If so, he functions almost like a galactic surveyor, cataloging civilizations not just by what they've accomplished, but also by their potential. The sheer scale of this responsibility is staggering. Imagine trying to measure every intelligent species in the universe, every achievement, every misstep, all to determine whether their existence serves a larger purpose in the Celestials' grand design. Hargen may not wield the destructive force of Eson or the commanding authority of Arishem, but his work underpins the very process of judgment. Without accurate measurements, the celestial hierarchy would collapse into chaos. In that sense, Hargen's quiet, almost invisible role is essential to the survival, or annihilation, of countless worlds. The Calculator, Nezarr. This one might sound like the celestial equivalent of a bookkeeper, but don't be fooled. He is both a master strategist and a formidable combatant. His official role involves cataloging and organizing all the information collected by Hargen and Jemiah. Think of him as the celestial archivist, ensuring that every piece of data is processed and interpreted before reaching Arishem for final judgment. But Nezarr's abilities go far beyond record-keeping. In the comics, Nezarr has demonstrated incredible psychic and combat powers. During one conflict with the Asgardians, he was targeted by a Soviet missile carrying the power of Odin himself. Instead of fighting directly, Nezarr used illusions to turn the soldiers against each other, manipulating their minds without lifting a finger. Later, when his arms were severed in battle, he instantly regenerated them, showcasing a healing factor rivaling some of the most powerful beings in Marvel's pantheon. The MCU hasn't shown this side of Nezarr yet, but given his presence in Eternals, we may see these abilities come into play in future films. What makes Nezarr fascinating is that his role embodies the fusion of intellect and power. He doesn't just store information, he interprets it, manipulates it, and, when necessary, uses it to fight. In many ways, Nezarr is the Celestial who bridges the gap between logic and action. He ensures the cosmic judgment process runs smoothly, but he also has the raw power to enforce it if needed. If Arishem is the judge and Jemiah the witness, Nezarr is the courtroom clerk, strategist, and warrior rolled into one. The Searcher, Eson. If there's one celestial introduction that burned itself into the minds of MCU fans, it's Eson the Searcher. Shown in Guardians of the Galaxy through the Collector's hologram, Eson wielded the Power Stone like it was nothing, erasing an entire civilization with a single swing of his staff.
The stone to mow down entire civilizations like wheat in a field.
For audiences, this was the first time we truly grasped the destructive potential of the Celestials, beings who could casually use an Infinity Stone without crumbling to dust. In the comics, Eson's role was to seek out worthy worlds to observe. His universal eye allowed him to see across the cosmos, constantly searching for life to study and evaluate. Some fans theorize that in the MCU, Eson also functioned as Arishem's executioner, carrying out the harshest punishments against planets deemed unworthy. However, the Eternals film complicates this theory. The dialogue suggests Arishem's judgment of Earth may have been his first ever, which would mean Eson's destruction of that planet wasn't tied to a formal verdict. What makes Eson particularly fascinating is his use of the Power Stone. While others, like Ronan the Accuser or even Thanos, struggled with the raw destructive energy, Eson wielded it as though it were just another weapon in his arsenal. That alone cements his place as one of the most terrifying Celestials we've seen. Whether as a seeker, an enforcer, or both, Eson the Searcher embodies the sheer, unapologetic power that makes the Celestials so awe-inspiring and so feared. The Communicator/Dreamer, Tiamut. Among the Celestials we've glimpsed, none is more tragic than Tiamut the Communicator, also known in the comics as the Dreaming Celestial. In Eternals, Tiamut was embedded deep within Earth's core, waiting to be born. His emergence would have destroyed the planet entirely, wiping out humanity in order to give rise to a new Celestial.
Tiamut needs vast amounts of energy from intelligent...
The Eternals, however, formed the Unimind and poured their collective energy into stopping him, leaving Tiamut frozen in stone beneath the ocean, a silent monument to what almost happened. In the comics, Tiamut plays a more complex role. He was responsible for creating Makkari, one of the fastest Eternals, and his title of Communicator suggests he served as a voice among the Celestials. At one point, Tiamut even rebelled against Arishem, believing that the Judge was malfunctioning after ruling Earth should be destroyed. This act of defiance led to his imprisonment beneath a mountain, earning him the name the Dreaming Celestial. The MCU seems to borrow from this storyline, reimagining Tiamut as the Celestial dreaming within Earth until his aborted emergence. What makes Tiamut significant is how his role ties into the Celestial's cycle of creation and destruction. To them, the birth of a new Celestial is necessary for the universe to thrive. To us, it's apocalyptic. Tiamut's aborted birth changed the course of the MCU forever, not only altering the Celestials' plans, but also leaving a literal giant in the middle of Earth's oceans, a permanent reminder of humanity's defiance against the gods of the cosmos. Ego the Living Planet. Ego stands apart from every other Celestial we've encountered. Introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ego is both a living planet and the father of Peter Quill. Unlike the humanoid Celestials clad in armor, Ego's form is unique, his consciousness spread throughout a planet he built around himself. This divergence makes him less of a traditional Celestial. Ego's backstory is as strange as it is tragic. He recalls drifting through the void of space completely alone, eventually learning to manipulate molecules and compounds around him. Over time, he constructed a planetary shell to house his growing consciousness. Later, he created an avatar, a humanoid extension of himself, so he could interact with the galaxy. Unlike Arishem, Ego could splinter his awareness, sending pieces of himself to other worlds. This ability is unique among Celestials and underscores his deviation from their grand design. His ultimate plan, called the Expansion, was to plant seedlings of himself across inhabited planets, slowly terraforming them into extensions of Ego. To complete this plan, he needed another Celestial's power, which is why he fathered countless children across the galaxy, searching for one who carried the spark of celestial energy. That child turned out to be Peter Quill. But before the expansion could be completed, Ego was destroyed by the Guardians and the Ravagers. His death not only stopped his plan, but also reinforced his role as the Celestial Outlier, a renegade who refused to follow the order of creation and judgment, choosing instead to play God in his own twisted way. The fallen, Knowhere. Finally, we come to one of the strangest celestial remnants in the Marvel, Knowhere. First introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy, Knowhere is the severed head of a long-dead Celestial. Over the centuries, it has been hollowed out and turned into a mining colony, an outlaw hub, a place where rules don't exist and only credits matter. The head itself contains materials so valuable that entire industries sprang up around extracting them. Bone marrow, spinal fluid, and even traces of brain tissue from the fallen Celestial became priceless resources on the galactic black market. The mining operations were eventually overtaken by the Tivon Group, transforming Knowhere into a lawless sanctuary for criminals, smugglers, and opportunists. Today, it's as much a character in the MCU as any living being, a place where major deals go down, secrets are traded, and power shifts hands in the shadows. The identity of the dead Celestial remains a mystery. Some fans speculate it might have been Jemiah the Analyzer, citing the bar called Jemiah's Boot inside Knowhere. But since Jemiah is also shown alive in Eternals, this seems unlikely. What's more interesting is the fact that Celestials, beings who create galaxies and wield infinity stones, can die at all. The existence of Knowhere proves that these gods are not immortal, and their corpses can reshape the destiny of countless civilizations. In many ways, Knowhere represents the ultimate irony of the Celestials. Even in death, they continue to influence the galaxy, their remains fueling the lives of those far beneath them in power. Which Celestials in this video was your favorite? Which one would you like to see make their jump into the MCU? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button.